Right, we're live. Let me quickly tweet out the links and then
Yeah.
get into it.
I actually lost my phone in Singapore airport. So angry.
What, did you just like drop it or something, or like?
No, I left it on the airplane, and as soon as I
Oh,
came off, I was like, "Oh, I left my phone." I asked one to get it back for me, and they're like, "Oh, it's not there." And I've been trying to get it since, bro. They literally,
nah. One of the attendants definitely took it and sold it, bro.
literally, that's literally what happened. That's literally what happened.
When you said, "Oh, can I get it back?" It was probably that same attendant, and it was just in his back pocket. He's like, "No, bro, it's not there anymore."
I'm telling you, scumbags, honestly.
But my mom, I remember my mom when because she was obviously she was born in Bangladesh, and then when my dad married her, she came here,
Yeah.
and same thing happened to her with
Really?
her jewelry. So
Ah,
you know, in Indian wedding, in Bangladeshi weddings, you've got like bare jewelry and shit.
jewelry. Yeah.
So she put that in her suitcase. So that's fine.
Yeah.
It's in the suitcase, whatever, and it's underneath the cargo. And then comes to London, the suitcase is not there. So then obviously they're like, "Where's the suitcase?" and all of that. They're trying to locate it, and then to this day, she came in 1995 till this
That's
day.
gone.
I was like, if it's jewelry, someone defo looked at it in TSA or something like that. You know, the customs. They
These
looked at it.
airport people are nasty, man.
Yeah, sometimes people just like that. There's no telling what you get. That's
Bro.
why she stopped. After that, she never put anything properly valuable in anything. Like in terms of if it is valuable, it'll be in the carry-on.
Mm.
All right, let's start. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ringside Fracas. I'm your host Naeem, and today Dapo returns. Dapo, how are you, bro?
It's good to be back, man. I've missed boxing. I've missed the ringside community. Yeah, man. So, let's get into it. I love exciting stuff ahead.
You're back at a great time. I mean, this week we came off obviously the Better BF Smith fight, which I think kicked off 2024 in a great way.
Great one.
And then on Monday we got the announcement for Joshua versus Ngannou, and then also the undercard for Joshua versus Ngannou, which we're going to go through now. We did cover last week in terms of it being signed, but we didn't get to see what the actual undercard would be, so we're going to go through that as well because the undercard is quite good, and also the Fury Usyk undercard because we've been waiting quite a bit for that also, and also in that same Joshua Ngannou press conference, we got something that I don't think a lot of us expected that we would probably get agreed to so quickly, which was a Matchroom versus Queensberry event, a 5v5 tournament that they're going to do. So we're also going to be covering that today. And then to end things off, a preview of next week's big fight between Jaime Munguia and John Ryder, as there's a lot on the line, which we're going to talk about while we come to that preview. But you know what? Let's get straight into it. So Monday, it's announced. We knew it was signed, but now they announce it. Anthony Joshua going to take on Francis Ngannou in what they call knockout chaos, which I think I kind of like. The naming of that isn't that great, and
Yeah.
the design. Did you see the poster design? I didn't really like it. It was like video games, and I get it, but at the same time, I was like, it wasn't.
Yeah, I guess they're trying to go for like an arcade style beat 'em up Street Fighter vibe thing going on. It makes sense, but at the same time, the name isn't great.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's not a stick ring to it, in my opinion, but it matches what they're trying to do. So here's what it's whatever.
Yeah, so on the last podcast, I always asked the boys and we gave our thoughts on Joshua versus Ngannou, but I didn't ask you that. Obviously, you know, you're a big fan of Anthony Joshua. What do you think now about him taking this sort of what we call exhibition / spectacle against Francis Ngannou?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've seen a lot of people are quite split, right? Some people believe that it's okay for AJ to take this kind of fight at this point in his career because his resume speaks for itself, right? And he's not current champion, so he's not really stopping the heavyweight division from moving along by taking this fight. So that's one way of looking at it. So it's just like, okay, Ngannou's had a a good performance against Tyson Fury, who a lot of people believe is the number one heavyweight in the world. This is an opportunity for AJ to sort of get his name back in the mix and make a statement, etc., and say, this is another opponent we have in common, and look what I did to him, etc. So there's an opportunity here, but at the same time, this is a fighter who has only fought once, and as an two-time world heavyweight champion and someone that's still in contention for the championship, like he's not like Wilder, who is obviously off or loss. He's building himself back to that picture, right? So some people will complain, but I lean more towards the I had an issue when Tyson Fury fought Ngannou because I wanted to see the undisputed fight, and him doing it at that time, I just felt like it was just a waste of time, and I wanted to see that fight so badly. And Fury holds a belt, and because Fury holds that belt, he is putting, he's almost holding the division back, right? So that's why I had an issue with Fury, but I don't have much of an issue with Joshua doing it because he's not a current champion, and I don't think we would get this fight if Ngannou doesn't have that sort of performance against Fury. So it's a catch-22. There's pros and cons, but for me personally, it's signed now. I don't really see an issue with it, only because AJ is on the same level as like most of these heavyweights now because he's not a champion, And if Ngannou chose to fight a Dylan White or he chose to fight, a Joseph Parker or whatever, I don't think as many people would complain about it. But because it's AJ, people have a problem. But they're all on the same level almost, because neither of them, those fighters are champions. And after Ngannou fought Fury, I saw many people putting all these sorts of names with Ngannou. I want to see Ngannou Wilder. I want to see Ngannou this person, Ngannou Zhang, Zhang. Honestly, AJ's on the same level as these guys in terms of where he ranks, in terms of like where he is as a fighter, not skill wise, obviously, but in terms of where he is, they're on the same level. So if you have a problem with Anthony Joshua fighting Ngannou, you should have the same sentiments with all these other fighters fighting Ngannou, in my opinion. As long as you don't have a belt and you're not holding the division hostage, I think it's whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Our main issue when Fury was fighting Ngannou was that he was a champion mainly. He'd be stupid not to fight Ngannou because the money made sense there, and it's an easier. It wasn't, or on paper it was. He didn't make it easy that fight for himself, but it was an easier fight on paper, and the amount of money on the line, he'd be stupid to turn it down. So the same thing with AJ. The difference again, like you said, with AJ that we look at and is like, well, he's not holding up, like you said, he's not holding up a fight. He's not been ordered by any sanctioning body yet to fight anyone. The two options in front of him is Zhang and Hrgovic outside of Ngannou that they were looking at. And well, Hrgovic, they want to do it for the IBF title, and they know that there's a very high possibility that it won't get ordered as soon as March, and the Saudis want something for March. And Zhang has the WBO interim. So again, why not just wait for a bit, until the WBO make Zhang a champion, and then you can fight him for a belt or whatever. So they needed something for March, and the Saudis said, "Look, we want to do Ngannou because we think this is the biggest money fight possible." So obviously, AJ's not going to turn that down. He'd be dumb to turn that down. But it is true that we would rather see him fight Zhang, Hrgovic, because they are much better fights than that, much more competitive. They should on paper pose much more of a threat to AJ. But it's here. Look, it's here. He's doing it. I'll give him the leeway the same way I would have given Fury the leeway. Is Fury was meant to fight Usyk in December. Okay, it's happening February, but the same thing with AJ. He's got to be fighting someone else as soon as he can, straight after, whether it's Zhang or Hrgovic, or now the thing that Turkey Al Sheikh said was he wants the winner of Joshua Ngannou to fight the winner of Fury Usyk. So I'm not sure what's going on in that space, because I heard when Fury Usyk was announced that it was a two-way rematch clause, that it doesn't matter who wins or who loses, there was going to be a rematch on the line. Now we're hearing this. So, but we'll see when we come to it, obviously when we get that bridge, when both of these fights are done. But look, in terms, I said it before last week, in terms of business, this will get eyes on the sport, because a lot of, if you go through the entire MMA community in terms of YouTube and in on the internet and whatever, a lot of these people think Ngannou can win and beat AJ. They don't rate AJ that highly, and they think Ngannou can beat him. So you'll see that a lot of people will tune into this fight, and it's two big 6'6". They're around that height, big heavyweights that can punch hard. People are gonna watch it regardless. But the good thing that they did was they made a good card under it, and that card can also set up timelines for us in terms of like fights that we can build towards. So I'm 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 not happy in the sense that this fight brings me that much happiness, but AJ's being active. um, he's the big dog in the sport, along with Fury, Canelo, them guys. So as long as those guys are active, the sport thrives when the big names in the sport are active. So you can't complain too much. And the undercard that they delivered is quite good. Chris Welch says, "Big up, lads. Hope you're well." Thank you, Chris. Hope you're well, bro.
Big up, Chris.
And he also says, from a business sense, it makes sense, but I'd rather AJ fight Zhang or Parker. But we need to see if Ngannou is actually good or if Fury is way off it. I suspect Fury is way off it, and he thinks AJ knocks out Ngannou. Yeah, I'd agree. I think AJ could probably stop Ngannou, but I think Ngannou can take a couple shots. I think Ngannou can definitely.
I've got a take on that whole thing, but I'll wait till we get to that section of it of what I actually think of it, because
Ngannou is the equivalent of a pub quiz winner and getting a bloody honor for it. No way Ngannou should be in the top 15 for the WBC for you. Well, that's it, isn't it? It's the WBC that messed up this entire situation by letting Tyson Fury fight Derek Chisora and then letting him fight Francis Ngannou, and not saying anything about his world title, and then giving Ngannou a top 15 belt title ranking for no reason, showing the rest of the people in the top 15 rankings that these rankings don't matter. We don't care about you. As long as you make money for us, then that's the only thing that matters. Your merit on fighting and ability and achievements don't matter to us. So all of those guys should look at them and go, you know what? I'm not taking part in this because I know that I'm going to get looked over a lot of the times. Agreed. When Fury was fighting Ngannou, I feel like it was a waste of time. Fury underestimated. Adrian will take it seriously and knock out Ngannou in the first half of the fight. Trust me. Yeah. He's with he's still staying with AJ, still sticking with Ben Davison, which I like, because like we said, it seems like Ben understands him a bit more and he keeps things simple, and they're not really changing too much about his game, that they're just getting him to punch harder, to punch through the target, and to take his time with his fighting and not just overthink things, but just keeping it simple. And I like the fact that he's with Ben Davison, because I said this before. Devin Haney said this on an interview. Lee Wiley and Ben Davison are probably two of the most tactical minded people and smartest people when it comes to boxing that he's met. He really likes their professionalism and how they approach certain fights. So it's good to stick with Ben Davison, because he will look at whatever Ngannou has, and Ben they'll take advantage of the weaknesses that they can see from Ngannou. But Derek James, you're out of here, mate. Trainer of the year is gone. He's gone. Dare Reckoning was a good name for a poster, but other names so far has been atrocious. Ring of Fire, yeah. Whoever the Saudis have got as their graphic designer and their post, like their, the people that come up with the names, the brainstorming, yeah, they got to fire them lot. Some rubbish, like there wasn't. I feel like they just said what sounds cool, and then they just pitched it to a group of year 8s. They came up with this, and that was the best that they came up with. That, yeah, we're going with it. Sounds cool. AJ just needs his confidence back, which he's getting back slowly. Ben is perfect for that. Yeah, like I said, Ben Davison is a good trainer. If it works, stick with it. Don't change what isn't broken. So
I think Ben is especially good for AJ, because I do think AJ was stuck between styles before, and seeing some of the things that Ben has been saying, or some of the things that even AJ has been saying about Ben, how they've been working together, it sounds like we're gonna use the best things about you and just make that better, rather than try and teach you about your weaknesses and stuff.
Yeah,
I think at this stage of AJ's career, that's probably the best thing you can do. You're not gonna change him to Usyk overnight, So Yeah.
So I wanted to come back to your theory about Ngannou and not getting stopped or being stopped or whatever it was. So what was your theory on that?
Okay. So I've rewatched the Fury and Ngannou fight. I feel like Fury's performance has made the MMA and boxing community overestimate Ngannou as a fighter. Let's go away from boxing for a second and let's go to MMA. Ngannou hasn't always been the best striker. It's just that he is a very, very strong man and hits very, very hard. We have seen how limited he is as a fighter in MMA, his own discipline, right? Because he had a knockdown against Fury and he obviously won a couple rounds, people now think that he can do that again to other fighters. I don't subscribe to that. I feel like any fighter that takes him even half seriously will end up stopping him only because of how the different disciplines translate. If you just take how Ngannou performed on its own merit, you will see even in front of Tyson Fury, and which that version of Fury is one of the worst versions I've ever seen of Fury in a very long time. I haven't seen that Fury fight that bad before, and obviously I've said on the podcast the reason why I feel like he looks so bad is mainly because he is deteriorating as a fighter. Like these things, how you look after your body, how active you stay. These things, your past opponents, these things accumulate and make a difference. And I think that's a big part of why we saw that version in front of Ngannou. He will look better versus Usyk. He will come more prepared. But that's why I feel like he looks so bad. I don't think we're going to get the same thing with Anthony Joshua. And I feel like we will quickly see the difference between a boxer and an MMA fight. Ngannou is not a boxer, and I could be wrong. This is combat sport. Like we get shocked all the time. That's one of the reasons why we love this sport. But I suspect that, like Chris said, this fight will end very, very early because we will see the difference very quick between an actual boxer and someone that's just picked up the gloves. Because although Ngannou did that to Fury, he still looks like someone that just started boxing. He still looks that way. It's just that Fury performed so bad. And he's still a 6'6", 200 whatever pounds man. So if that person hits you, you will go down, no matter how skilled you are. So I just feel like I've seen a lot of people are trying to make this fight sound more competitive than it. Even Eddie Hearn now is doing it, which is very funny to me because a few months ago Eddie Hearn was saying that prospect heavyweights would beat Ngannou. So it's very, very interesting how they're trying to sell this fight. Like it's very, very. I don't think it's that dangerous, honestly. I don't think because outside of being hit clean, what dangers does Ngannou possess? Like what does he possess? Like what does he bring to the table? What's dangerous about him? He can't throw you on the floor. He can't grapple with you. He can hit you, but does he have the technical ability to actually land on you properly? Boxing is not like MMA where you can get away with those kind of punches. You have to set things up, especially when you're fighting a schooled fighter like Anthony Joshua. It's not Dylan White. It's somebody that can set up their punches. He can jab you. He has different combinations. He has power in both hands. That's just how I feel. I see that fight. I feel like people are overestimate how dangerous Ngannou actually is to prop up the fight, but I don't think it's what people are trying to make it sound, especially the MMA community.
I mean, MMA community has never had the greatest opinions when it comes to certain things. So I've never taken them for for word in terms of how smart it comes to them. And I'm a big MMA fan, but I've seen a lot of times when it comes to the community, it's not great.
I'm an MMA guy, yeah. So yeah.
Even when Chris says, even when Ngannou knocked Fury down, Ngannou didn't even try to go for killer instinct. He backed off Fury. I think it's more to do with Ngannou's never been in that position where.
I was about to say the exact same thing. He doesn't really know, because in MMA, the guy goes down, you can finish the fight right there.
Yeah.
The guy gets up in boxing, he gets 10 count, he gets up, and he's now obviously Tyson Fury has a way. He knows how to recover, right?
Yeah.
And He knows how to keep you away from him, etc. He doesn't know what to do in that kind of situation. He's not schooled.
And also, there's a reason it's 10 rounds. Ngannou doesn't want to then just start blasting his hands away, hoping he catches Fury. And then when he doesn't, that's it. He's messed for the next 10 rounds, the next
We
7
know
rounds.
that he's had problems with his stamina, even in the UFC. Ngannou gets tired.
Yeah, he got tired in the in the Fury fight. At the end of the Fury fight, the last 2-3 rounds in the Fury fight, both of them were tired as hell. They couldn't do anything to each other. That's why that fight looked as close as it did, because Fury should have saw out those rounds and could have beaten up Ngannou in those. But his legs were gone, his conditioning wasn't there, and he couldn't do anything to him in those. And that's why the fight ended the way it did. Fury has the 20 count from the first Wilder fight.
Forget about Wilder, man. Let's forget about this guy, man. This guy,
That's like what?
he lost
4
12
years ago now?
Parker, man. Let's forget about Wilder.
No, that's like 6 years ago almost now. That chapter's been closed, Chris. We're not going back to the first Wilder fight. But what I will say is, it will be interesting to see how AJ and Ngannou deal with each other in terms of their strength. Both strong guys, but we'll see like how it looks in the clinch, especially the. I'm interested to see how AJ deals with Ngannou in the clinch or what he does.
I'm trying
Ngannou's
to. Has AJ ever fought anyone as big and strong as Ngannou?
no.
No.
I think the strongest fighter he probably would have fought,
Klitschko?
maybe, yeah, probably Klitschko. But the guy that gave him a lot of trouble on the inside, Povetkin.
Povetkin, yeah.
Povetkin gave him a lot, but Povetkin's because Povetkin's the type of guy, he doesn't care where he's punching as long as he's landing a punch somewhere, on like even if it's on your arms, your elbows, whatever. And also, he's very rough and tough with it. So Takam as well. Takam is also strong.
Takam is strong, yeah.
Not as big as Ngannou. I'd imagine Ngannou is quite stronger than all of them. Like just physically as a person, they're quite stronger than them. All right, so there's that fight, Joshua versus Ngannou. That's obviously been announced, and again, it still has mixed reactions, but I can't complain of the undercard that they actually set up for it, which is a decent undercard. And the main fight that they've put under it, I'm quite happy with. I think it's a really good fight. Zhilei Zhang will return from his third round knockout over Joe Joyce to fight Joseph Parker, who's coming off his career best win, as well as Zhilei Zhang, over Deontay Wilder. I mean, that is a great fight. You've got two legit I'd say top 5, top 10 heavyweights fighting off against each other, who, if we're being honest, in terms of meritocracy, these two deserve a title shot. If the winner out of them would deserve a title shot, 1,000,000%. Like Zhang or Parker, I'd love to see them fight Fury or Usyk, and this fight is a brilliant fight. I think they set up well. We initially thought so when we were discussing this last week. We thought it was Zhang versus Wilder. Turns out that's not happening. Wilder said he's returning in March, but he hasn't said who, where, what. So that's in the. We're not going to worry about that for now. But Zhang versus Parker is brilliant, especially from Joseph Parker. Like, you got to give credit to him. Taking on Deontay Wilder in December and then Zhilei Zhang in March is a huge feat. Those two wins eclipse anything that AJ's done.
His resume is starting to cook a little bit.
If he beats Zhilei Zhang, those two wins eclipse anything AJ's done in the last like 3-4 years. It does. It just does. Sorry, but it does. Like that is two very, very good wins.
Good wins, yeah.
But the same thing for Zhang. You beat Joyce and then you beat Joseph Parker. Very good wins to put on your resume. Like those are great wins to have. So I'm excited for this fight. I think Parker's a very good opponent. He's solid. He's sturdy. He knows his boxing. He's quite nimble, but he can still punch and he's a bit tough. But Zhilei Zhang's also got that great combination punching, got power behind it. He's got good composure. I saw that in the Joe Joyce fight. But the problem he will find here is Joe Parker's not like Joe Joyce. His head's not going to always be there to be hit all the time. He's not going to be slow. He's not going to be coming forward, just taking punches to try land his own. He's got a problem. He's got a real problem to deal with. And for me, I think you'd have to say that Joe Parker's the favorite probably going into this fight. even though I thought his performance against Wilder was a bit basic, I still think it's enough for me to see him beat a guy like Zhang, especially when we know that Zhang has issues with his stamina. And I don't think Joseph Parker could probably stop him, but I think Joseph Parker can definitely take advantage of that after the first 6 rounds. Like he can definitely still keep working and still beat him. So I mean, this is a very intriguing fight, and I can't wait for it. But what are your thoughts on Zhang Parker getting made?
Yeah, currently I'm predicting Parker on points. I feel like he should have he should have a performance akin to the one I thought he would have had against Joe Joyce. I think him against Joyce, I think Parker had a wrong game plan personally. Um, and yeah, I think Parker is for me. Parker is the favorite in this fight. I think I see him taking on points, especially in the later rounds, because we have seen Zhang slow down, especially when Zhang is in a tough fight. He slows down quite quickly as well. He's on the older side of the heavyweights, and you can see that. So and Joyce is one of the younger ones for what he's accomplished already in the sport. He's one of the younger ones. So if we can see glimpse of prime Parker in this fight, I see no reason why he can't make it on points. If he moves how I think he can move, and I don't see Zhang is not the kind of fight that walks through your punches like Joyce does. That was a big problem Parker had in that fight as well. Like Joe Joyce just didn't respect Parker's power, and at that time he really believed in his chin, and he was able to just walk through Parker's offense and just tee off on Parker. I don't see that kind of fight with Zhang. I do think Zhang will have some success, but if Joe Joyce can weather some early storms, because I think Zhang will look really good at the first 4 to 6 rounds potentially, or not even 6, maybe like the first 4 rounds, Zhang will look really good. So if Joyce can weather the storm, Zhang will fade. And whatever Andy Lee and Parker come up with, I think they should have that in mind. That you're going against a fighter who is notoriously known for fading. They don't have to wait till round 7. He starts to fade in like round 4 to 6. Just look at Zhang versus Jerry Forrest. Is that his name?
Yeah, Jerry Forrest. Yeah,
a fighter he should have easily stopped, but his engine let him down that day. So I think that's a good fight. It's a good reference for them. Also, a good reference would be the Zhang and Hrgovic fight. That's a good reference. Zhang is so schooled, man. He's actually a really good fighter. I watched that Hrgovic fight the other day as well, and some of the things that he did some really good things in that fight. Like honestly, so there is a threat there, 100%. This is a live dog you're fighting. It's just that I don't think Zhang is in his physical prime. So Parker should be able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, I perfectly agree. I mean, like, with the Hrgovic as well, I think Hrgovic is a solid fighter in terms of he can take a punch. He can definitely keep his composure in there. But I think I do see Parker. For some reason, I can see him getting dropped. I think like just because Zhang's combinations are very good. It's very fast, and I think he's got one of the fastest hands. In the some of the fastest hands in the division, not the fastest, but some of the fastest hands.
I completely agree, and I think that's what gave Hrgovic problems.
Yeah, and I can see that catching Parker and just dropping him. Maybe not through losing his getting completely unconscious, but like losing his footing and getting caught off balance and just getting dropped from it. But like we said, we saw him slowing down in a lot of his fights, and in the both Joyce fights, they didn't go longer than 6 rounds. The first fight was stopped in the 6th, and the second fight was stopped in the 3rd. It's not enough to tell
He
us whether or
actually
not.
stopped Joyce. Nah, that second fight was worse than the first one.
It was the worst time for it to happen because Joyce could have been in on all this Saudi heavyweight.
Yeah, he must be vexed, boy.
Yeah, and now he's fighting in Birmingham against Cash Ali. So
he fell off. Boxing is mad, 2 L's, you're out of here.
Yeah, you got to build your way back.
You're fighting, boy.
You're fighting in the Birmingham centre, like,
bro. He's actually mad. Like chopping the L in boxing, you're back to the O2 when you were doing
Yep.
Wembley and that. It's crazy.
Same thing with the Joshua. So, but yeah, he slowed down in those fights, and I feel like we'll see Parker eventually build up a lead in those later rounds, and I don't think he can like, I don't think what's the name, that
I don't know
Zhang has that second
how
win.
well Parker recovers though, man. I think that's sus. His recovery powers are sus to me. I don't know. I
I
feel
don't know
like
because he's only been stopped once in his career, so I can't
mm,
really say like, oh, his everything's sus. But
mm,
what I can do is that you can say that he does get caught quite a bit,
he does.
and
He's not as elusive as you think he is.
no, he's not. He's not. He's no defensive fighter. Let me try something because on this. Let me share my screen and then see how it works. Does it work? Can we see?
Yeah, that's sick. Yeah,
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 good. Okay, so we got Joseph Parker's box rec, and we see that he's already been stopped once in his career.
yeah,
Obviously, that was against Joe Joyce. Yeah.
yeah, yep.
So now, if we look at actually, what I wanted to see is like, let's look at his actual career, like the names that he has on his career.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we go down, we start from the bottom. We go up. Franz Botha. If you don't know this, he's Botha's from the old heavyweights. That doesn't really count as a name because this is when Botha's like really old. So
Mm-hmm.
you come up and he's racks up his wins, and you
Mm-hmm.
see he's won, almost everything that you could possible that you can win when you're in Australia, because not everything's available to you, like the British title or
Of
anything like
course.
that. You can win it from your end. And then he beats Carlos Takam, which I don't
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people talk about, the fact that he also beat Takam.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
When did he fight Ruiz? Was that before Takam or after? Okay,
uh,
Ruiz.
After, so there it is. And then he beats Dimitrenko, and then he beats Ruiz for the vacant WBO title. And
Mm-hmm.
then he beats Huey Fury,
Yeah.
which a lot of people thought Huey Fury won. So, but still, then obviously he loses his to AJ, and then he
Mm-hmm.
loses to Dylan White, which I was very
A
shocked.
fight which he could have won. One more
Yeah,
round, he could have won that fight.
and then he beats Derek Chisora twice, and the second time he really flogs him.
Mm.
Junior Farr, I don't care. Junior Farr is not a proper name. Loses to Joe Joyce, but then builds himself back. Beats Simon Keane, beats Deontay Wilder, and now he's fighting Zhilei Zhang. And this
So that's a
period
good
here is a crazy period. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights in around a year and a bit. That is
Mhm.
crazy. You gotta give this man credit, man. He's holding up. He's doing a lot of work in the heavyweight division. He's really getting at it. So give him his credit.
Agreed. Yeah.
Stop showing that because my computer's about to explode. So let's not before I blow up on screen. Let's not see that. But yeah, we gotta give Joe Joyce his credit because like that is an insane run to have on your record to beat Zhang, to beat Wilder. Like a lot of people are gonna start looking at you differently, especially if you beat Zhang. Especially if you beat Zhang, and I think he will do.
I think so too. Agreed.
And big up the Saudis for making that because I really like that fight. I think that fight is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Chris says this is the most intriguing fight of the heavyweight division at the moment. Yep. Parker's knocked out by Joyce, but then Zhang knocked out Joyce twice. And then so Parker's much better though since Joyce knocked him out. So can Parker and Andy Lee come up with the perfect game plan for Zhang? Yeah. I've never believed triangle theories work in boxing where like, oh, if I beat fighter A and fighter A beats fighter B, then that means I can also beat fighter. No. We all have to fight each other and find out. That's the one thing about boxing I hate when people do is when they try
Proxy
to
wins.
proxy wins. Yeah, I hate proxy wins. Just fight them and see what happens, and that's what we're getting here. Parker's fighting guys that he's fighting everyone. You can't deny he's fought AJ, he's fought Wilder, he's fought White, he's fought Andy Ruiz, he's fought Deontay Wilder. Now he's fighting
Champions can't even say that. Tyson Fury can't say that.
Yep. So and Andy Lee's a good trainer. He will come up with a good game plan to neutralize the combination punching of Zhilei Zhang. Chris also agrees with us. He thinks Parker is also favorite. And he says, yeah, it's true. We saw Zhang slow down in the second half of the fight against Hrgovic, which I believe, because he slowed down, is what let Hrgovic build up that lead and then win.
100%. If he was just had a bit of a better range, he would have won that fight.
Yep. Joyce needs to be aware of Cash Ali's nibbles. If you remember, Cash Ali fought David Price. I think it was on a Matchroom
Yeah,
card,
he kept biting him or something,
and
right?
he bit him, and he got disqualified for biting him.
Oh,
So
and he's allowed to fight again. What a weirdo.
I mean, that was a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, boxing is boxing. You got drug cheats that are allowed to fight again. So
Yeah.
1 year ago, Parker was underwhelming against cruiserweight Massey, and then 1 year later, he has his masterclass against Wilder. Yeah. So if you don't remember, Parker was with Boxer. So when he signed to fight Joe Joyce, it was a Boxer and Queensberry Promotions. It was on Queensberry Promotions, but he was a Boxer fighter. Then he came back to box and fought on, I think it was the Eubank Smith undercard. Yeah. And then the first fight. And then that fight was against a cruiserweight in Jack Massey. And everyone was looking at him going, yo, you just came off the loss to, you got battered by Joyce. And then you lose to you beat this guy in Jack Massey, but you look really crappy against him. A lot of people didn't think he was going to go far after this. And then look at that, 4 fights later, look where he's at now. He's 1 fight off a title shot. And he's 1 fight off of being one of the best fighters of this heavyweight generation. You have to give him his credit because he's been fighting everyone. You're muted.
100%.
Yeah.
Because that's what we want. He's doing what we want.
Yeah, he's doing what we want from everyone else. Yeah. It was a Smith versus Eubank first fight card that he was on. And then since then, he hasn't gone back to boxer, so fair enough. And them, man, they're in a lot of trouble. So we'll talk about that later when we can in terms of what boxer are up to, because it's still developing and I don't want to get into it as now and get ourselves into trouble. Just other fights on the Joshua Ngannou card. I'm really surprised with this one. Ray Vargas versus Nick Ball for the WBC World Featherweight Championship. So if you didn't know, I'll give you the backstory quickly. I'm going to rant a bit, so just hold on, bear with me. Ray Vargas was the WBC Featherweight Champion. The WBC let him go up to 130 last year or the year before. I'll just check quickly, to fight Oshaki Foster for his vacant WBC belt. He lost that fight, so he obviously came back down because he lost, so he came back down. Yeah, it was last year in February. So he lost that fight, and then he came back down. And since then, Brandon Figueroa came up from super bantamweight, beat Mark Magsayo for the interim title, and it was meant to be Vargas versus Figueroa to unify the belts. By unify, meaning the interim and the full title. PBC doing what PBC thinks. You've got 2 BBC fighters, and what they do typically, don't announce when these lot are going to fight. They say they're going to fight next, but they don't announce the date, the event, when or where. So you're just waiting in limbo until these lot agree to fight. So Nick Ball, in the meantime, in 2023, is just beating up everyone that he can and building his WBC ranking till he's the number 1. He beat his last fight, Isaac Dogbe, on the Denzel Bentley versus Heaney undercard. And yeah, he was next for the WBC title, but everyone knew it was going to take him quite a while because PBC, in the way they are, they're going to announce this fight however long it takes. Then the winner's going to take a year after. So Nick Ball would have to wait so long for his title shot. What I'm assuming must have happened is when all this stuff was being done, Frank Warren probably gave a word to the Saudis, said, look, I want Nick Ball to have a world title shot. Can you offer Ray Vargas certain money so we can pull him away and we can put this WBC title shot? And fair enough to Ray Vargas, got the money, and now we've got this fight on the Joshua Ngannou undercard, and it's a really good fight. Like, Nick Ball is someone people need to know about. Like, he's a really good,
very exciting fighter.
Yeah, boy, he's a short little tank. Like, the guy is a tank. Let me show just quickly before again. Let me just let my computer explode again. Nick Ball, look, 19-0, 11 knockouts. If you look at the guys he's been beating, Isaac Dogbe, Lamati, and Lamati was unfortunately got taken to hospital. He beat Rubio, he beat Kakalo, and he beat also Isaac Lowe and knocked him out on the Fury White undercard. So he's built himself as this little tank to this world title shot. And I'm happy for him because he deserves this world title shot. But Ray Vargas, he's a real tough, one of the Mexicans that's really tough. Look at that record, 36-1, 22 knockouts, really tough opponent. He's been beating everyone that he can going up the weights. You see, he was a super bantamweight champion, and then he came up to featherweight, and then tried to go for super featherweight. Obviously, he didn't get that, but he's a 2 division champion. You know, he's a real tough opponent to take on, especially for Nick Ball. And it's going to be a really good fight. It's going to test for Nick Ball whether or not he is a world champion level. It's one of those fights. Like if you're really a world champion,
Get behind him, man.
yeah.
Yeah, just get
And
behind
even Chris Welch says Ball be up a very good fight in Dogba. Yeah, Dogba is a great gatekeeper for the world level, and Nick Ball really did beat him up. Yeah, like Chris said, he's a gatekeeper for the world title shots, and Nick Ball really did beat him up and really did well in that fight. So I'm excited for this one because it's a good fight. It will be a good fight and it'll be entertaining. These two are going to go at each other, and it's on a good card as well. You know, Joshua Ngannou is going to be a big platform, so they're going to get a lot more eyes on them. So I'm excited for that. So anything else on that? I mean, Roman Fury, Hugh Fury's cousin. So there's that. And then there's also Mark Chamberlain versus Gavin Green. That's a good lightweight fight for British level fight. So that's a decent fight that they put on. Also, Justice Hooney, so Matchroom's heavyweight prospect, he's on it from Australia. And then Saudi's own, which I'm glad they're doing, because I want one thing to happen in this Saudi thing is I want Saudis to also big up their own, not big up, but like give their own fight as a platform. So then the boxing in their space can actually thrive more with their own fighters. So they've got Ziad Al Mayouf, which is one of their fighters who went to the Olympics on that card as well. So it's gonna be a good card to watch in general. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. Good card to watch.
Agreed. Yeah. I think their card was way better, but yeah, this is good.
Yeah, but that's because we had so many names on it. Here we have good names on it, but I don't think you can spend as much money consistently with this. But it's a good card, and it's a decent card to have. So speaking of other cards, so obviously Fury Usyk, we were waiting for the undercard. We didn't know what we were going to get. Then out of nowhere, they announced the undercard. So the first fight that they announced for it was Opataya versus Breedis. What a fight! Sorry, it's not just Opataya versus Breedis. It's Opataya versus Breedis 2.
I was going to say, isn't there a fight already?
Yeah. So so that was Opataya's coming out fight to the world, where not coming out like that, pause, but where he announced himself to the world scene that he's a world champion level. He suffered, the broken jaw in 2 places and still managed to beat Maris Breedis to become IBF world champion. The stupid thing is, we were talking about this earlier on the Day of Reckoning preview, where he had to give up his IBF title because they didn't want him fighting Ellis Zorro. Well, now look, he gave it up, and yet 2 months later, he's fighting for it again. So what kind of stupid nonsense is that? But it's a great fight, especially on the Fury Usyk undercard. That's a great fight to put on because them two are really going to go at it. The one thing I do have an issue with in terms of not the fight, but just issue with the fight itself is this is Breedis' first fight since losing to Opataya almost over a year and a half ago. So he's coming into this fight almost 2 years of inactivity. You have to give it to Opataya, who's fought the last 2 in the last year, had 2 fights, and he's looked great. He's going to come in with all the confidence, all the activity, everything going at the age as well, because Breed is 39, everything going his side.
I would have loved to have a proper Breeders in this fight, man. Because I think Brian Breeders beats Opataya, but yeah.
I think he's a great fighter, Breedis. But the problem with him is I don't know who's his manager's. His manager's Sauerland, the guy that looks like he's always sniffing something every event. He does the Misfits also. What kind of management is that where you let your fighter not fight for over a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then you negotiate this fight for him as his first fight back? It's just dumb. He's 39. He should be fighting more just to see if he's ready for it or not. You don't want this fight to be the one where you're testing out your timing and everything. So it's not a great move. But the fight itself, I'm happy with, and I'm happy that's on the Fury. Like I said, I'm happy it's on the Fury Usyk undercard because it will get a lot of exposure on it. And Opataya is someone that the Saudis are really behind. They've really got behind him. They want him to be one of their star guys. So that's good because he delivers. He's been delivering, and we'll see again if he delivers. What do you think about Opataya and Breedis?
Yeah, like you said, I'm a little bit bummed out that we're probably not gonna get the best version of Breeders in this fight. Just we've seen how inactivity can dampen the quality of a fight. Wilder versus Parker, we should have seen a better Wilder in that fight. But we all said, okay, cool. He knocked out what's that guy's name? The guy he fought before Parker, the one that AJ fought as well.
Hellenius.
Hellenius. He knocked Hellenius out in a round. But we all said we didn't know what he was as a fighter, and then he took another year to fight again. I just knew that we want the version of Vada we were gonna get in that fight would probably not be the best version that we could get, and it's just the same story here. Like a year later, you're fighting a guy that just beat you. Like, no, yeah, he beat you a year ago. It's not like sometimes you lose to a fight, you go into an immediate rematch a couple months down the line. It's not even that. It's a year. It's a year and a half. So I have to favor Apatai in this fight. He's building momentum. He's the younger fighter. He's knocking people out. He's around. I heard he was part of the Fury camp for Usyk.
Yeah.
He's putting himself around some serious people. So I have to give him the edge in this fight. Also, even before the first Apatai fight, the seriousness and brilliance as a fighter is very low because he was chasing that Jake Paul fight for time. No serious fighter champion is chasing. I know the money is there, but come on, a fighter with integrity. He's not chasing Jake Paul for a fight. I don't know how seriously I can take Breeders in this fight, in the second fight. But like I said, I would love to see a unformed Breeders take on a Pattaya. I think that's when we have a real fight. But I just don't know where Breeders is at, so I have to favor Pattaya in this fight. I think he might even stop him.
Yeah, that is very possible. And the fight's happening in, what's it? Where February 17th is, I think, a month from now. Just under a month from now. I was surprised they announced it on I think it was 5 weeks notice because it's a very good fight, but it's very short notice to announce it on. But still, it's a great fight to put on. And the other fights they put on was Joe Cordina, so he's returning on that card against Anthony Kachech. So he's putting his IBF title on the line. Good domestic level fight between the two, but I think Joe Cordina should be winning that fight handedly if he doesn't fight stupidly. He should be fighting normally. Also, Sergey Kovalev is on the fight against Silwan. I don't know who that person is, but Kovalev's on that fight. For some reason, I can imagine if Kovalev looks good, they might do an Opataya versus Kovalev fight because Kovalev's fighting at cruiserweight now, so they might just do that just for the name of it and to get Opataya another fight. The way he looks good and he knocks out another big name. But the main ones that I want to look at is the two names on it is Moses Itauma and Bakhode Jalolov, or Jolov as you like calling him. So
my guy Jolov.
These lot in the group chat love calling him Jolov. But them two, I think it's very poignant that they're on that card because you've got Fury Usyk, which is the determination of who the best heavyweight of this era is. Then you've got Itauma and Jalolov, who, because they're on the undercard, they're the next era's heavyweights. Like as soon as these Paris Olympics are done, Jalolov will accelerate his career towards a world title. He's just waiting right now, fighting whoever, like not any good names, because he's just waiting to go to Paris, win his second Olympic gold medal, and then he'll go for a world title. And he's 29, so he feels like he's got all the time in the world. And Otama is very young. I mean, he's 18, 19. He's got all the time ahead of him to develop. But these two are the next two guys. I feel like it will be Jalolov first being the next number one heavyweight, and then it will be Itauma. I don't know if he'll be the number one, but he's got a lot of potential, and it's one of them ones you have to keep looking at him, seeing how he develops, because he's a really good fighter. So it's very poignant to have them two on there because big platform of heavyweights, but again, kind of a passing of the torch, symbolic. Like these two are the ones that are going to be next for the heavyweights, and they're going to be the ones next up, and the ones that are going to be the kings of the heavyweight division. So I'm glad that they put them two on that card. And for Jalolov is good because he's Muslim, So the Saudis are really going to invest in him because he's from Uzbek, so it's harder to promote those type of fighters, like we've seen with Beterbiev, in Russia and everything, and Bivol. It's harder to promote those type of fighters. But if you get the Saudis backing him, he'll be in a lot of big fights in the future. So great to see those two on the card. What are you expecting from those two?
Yeah, it's like you said, like it's good to see some of the fresher prospects share the same card as the top heavyweights now, as kind of they are reaching the end of their careers now. So the Tyson Fury, that era is reaching its tail end now. So it's good to see how the guys coming up are going to start mixing up now, because I'm really intrigued in the next heavyweight story. We've had a roller coaster, for this generation. So the next one's coming up. It's good to see that they're already mixing it up quite early. So yeah, I think fans that want to see, start investing early, because these are names that are probably going to be around for next 5 years. We'll start seeing these names in like really big fights. If you guys want to start getting in early stocks, definitely tune in for this fight. Keep an eye on these fighters, especially my main man Jadov. So yeah, man, I can't wait. It's definitely a good one.
Yeah. So again, two great cards to kick off the spring of 2024, and um, it does. I do have this feeling that we're going to get a better year than we did in 2023. But it is dependent on the Americans. But again, great two cards, great two fights to put on, and when the heavyweights are fighting, it's more significant for the sport because they are the glamour division, and a lot of people take more notice when them lot are fighting. So I'm happy that they are fighting. But that wasn't the only thing that was announced in that press conference. That press conference was a roller coaster of emotions for a boxing fan. So, Turkey Al Sheikh said he wants to see Matchroom versus Queensberry, Frank Warren versus Eddie Hearn. He wants to see a 5v5, not in one go. We're not. This is not WWE. We're not doing no handicap triple threat type match. It's 5 fighters versus 5 fighters, 5 weight classes. They're going to choose. They're going to pick one fighter for each, and we can get 5 fights, a fight card built off of that. And they agreed to it on stage. They shook hands straight away. Eddie Hearn, which is the thumbnail. If you see on our, if you're watching from YouTube, that was the thumbnail of the pod. But they also sat down and they actually drafted an agreement for it that they're eventually going to announce it on the Joshua Ngannou fight week, what the fight card will be, who's on it, and also when and where it's going to be. But they said it's going to be around the summertime. I think this is a historic moment for the sport because we rarely see cross-promotional fights like this where you have 5 Matchroom fighters taking on 5 Queensberry fighters for that purpose of doing promotions fighting each other. But the money talks, and these men are doing it now. The Saudis want to see it, so Frank and Eddie are delivering. And the prospect of it is fun because we've always wanted to see this, even before the Saudis were involved. A lot of fans wanted to see cross-promotional fighters. You wanted to see Golden Boy fighters take on top-ranked fighters. You want to see PBC fighters take on top-ranked fighters. You want to see PBC fighters take on Golden Boy fighters. You want to see PBC fighters take on Matchroom fighters, and so on and so forth. So this is a good step in the right direction, and I'm glad we get to see it. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna ask you, Dapper, what are your thoughts on this historic thing, and then we'll move on to the next segment of this part.
Love the idea. It's almost like like fantasy football, or like like those fantasy like draft picks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I only have one gripe, and my only one gripe is Queensberry and Matchroom are both like those are the two main UK promotions, right? I wish this would have been happening in the UK. I hate the fact that the Saudis have to get involved for something like this to happen, because this idea has been floating around for years. So I wish this would have happened in the UK somewhere. But that's my only gripe. But apart from that, yeah, this is great. I really do hope that we get quality fighters from both sides. I don't know if anything's been announced yet about who's fighting on what side or what weight class, whatever. Nothing's been announced yet. But I really do hope that the fights that do get announced are actual intriguing fights. I don't want any mismatches. And I guess it's a bit less likely to happen because both guys won't want to lose. Like there's actual competition between the promoters themselves. So yeah, this should be good, man. If done properly, this could be historic. I just wish that the Saudis didn't have to get involved for something like this to happen because as soon as it was mentioned, it happened immediately. Why can't we get
Yeah.
stuff like that in the UK? So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Is they're mostly going to be these are fights that a lot of these fights we want to see in the UK, and you have to think about the live element of everything. But we'll talk about that when we discuss when we do the Fury Usyk preview, which will be in 2 or 3 weeks from now. We'll discuss that in more detail because we've also got Sate coming on. Then he wants to give his thoughts as well on the product and how the product is changing in boxing. But yeah, you're right. It's something that the UK fans have always wanted, and at least we're getting it. That's the main thing. At least we're getting it. So what we're
100%.
going to do now is we're gonna go through some fights that we want to see from Matchroom in Queensberry. Now, obviously, there are the bait ones, and we're not going to really go for them for um, and AJ Fury. That's very bait, and
But
that's not. But
I think is one as well.
no, but
No,
Batavia's
sorry, my
okay,
bad.
yeah, he's top rank, so he's not going to work with it. So I think the main fight, and I said this before we started rolling, the main fight that I think should headline this would be Anthony Yard, Queensberry versus Callum Smith Matchroom. I think that's a very good fight to make. They've both went in there with Beterbiev. They lost to Beterbiev, but Beterbiev is who he is. They're still world level fighters, and I think that's a very very good competitive fight to watch. I think that's fun. What do you think about that matchup?
Yeah, I can't think of a big outside of the ones you just obviously named that will probably will not get on a card like this. I can't think of a more quality fight from both promotions. I really can't think of one. But yeah, 100%. That's a really big domestic dust up. If only Bawatsi was still part of Matchroom, we could have potentially seen that as well. Bawatsi and Yard on that 5v5, but he's not with Matchroom anymore. So yeah, I think Callum Smith versus I would favor Yard in that fight, but yeah, I think that would be a massive. Depending on how the card is built on top of that as one of the main fights, yeah, that would be a big one. That'd be sick.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I think obviously Yard wanted Buatsi after the Buatsi Aziz. I feel like he will take on actually Smith if the Saudis offer it. He'll probably take on Smith and tell Buatsi, "Cool, look, these men are offering the money. Why wouldn't I fight someone like Callum Smith for all this money? Like it just makes sense." But another fight I think they should also look at is probably who's some. I had a lot of fights on my head, and now I've just completely blanked on who that they should fight. Oh no, another one could be. So obviously, Matchroom have Raymond Ford, who's a featherweight fighter. He's fighting Komotov for the title. Nick Ball's fighting Ray Vargas on the Joshua Ngannou card. If both of them win or lose their fights, we could see a potential unification between the two, or not a unification. But I'd love to see that because I think that fight will be great. Raymond Ford, great slick boxer. Nick Ball, really tough tank, and they're both featherweights, so that would be great to watch. Who do Queensberry have that I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of Joe Cordino. Who could you match up Joe Cordino with? I feel like you could match up. You could do a lot of matchups. You could do what's his name? Nathaniel Collins versus Hopi Price. So that's a British featherweights. You could do that because that would be really good. You could do Liam Davis versus Shabazz Masood. If there's anything that I'm missing, any fights that I'm missing, you lot could put it in the comments and we'll shout them out because I'm drawing a blank. But I'm trying to think of potential Queensberry versus Matchroom fights that could happen. Dennis McCann is a Queensberry fighter. He's a young prospect. I feel like if he takes on any Matchroom prospect, that would be a great fight to watch. Andy Cruz, that's it. I want to see Andy Cruz against someone from Queensberry. Andy Cruz is a really good opponent, and I feel like that type of card would benefit him because he'd really show out, especially against a Queensberry fighter, whoever they got lightweight, whether it's Sam Noakes, whether it's Chamberlain, whoever it is, I feel like he could beat those guys. So there's loads of names I think on there. But the main thing I want is Callum Smith versus Anthony Yard. I think you can't go wrong with that. It will sell because Callum's got his Liverpool fan base, Anthony's got his London fan base, so they both will go at each other, and it'll both make a great fight for us to watch. Any fights that you're particularly thinking about seeing other than that? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about heavyweights. Obviously after the debate, guys like AJ and Fury. Who?
I know. You know
Who?
Johnny Fisher,
Yeah, Matchroom.
Moses Palmer.
Yeah.
That would be good. Because I think Itama would cook him.
Mm.
I think Itama would cook Fish. I don't really, but Fisher's got power, so it would make it fun.
Mm.
That's a really good fight. Or if you wanted to do something like, because you're going to do it this year, so I don't think they'll put Itama that deep. You could do Adelaide versus Fisher.
Yeah, yeah.
That
I
is
was
a good
looking
fight.
at him as well.
Yeah, so you could do David Adelaide versus Fisher. You could also do Hamza Shiraz versus one of Matchroom's middleweights, like Felix Cash.
Yeah.
That's a good fight, especially if Hamza Shiraz comes through Liam Williams in February. Put him against Felix Cash, perfect sort of step up, and then world title for him next. But yeah, that's a good fight. And again, Hamza Shiraz is a big name. You've got, to be fair, you've got Gilles Zhang, who's Queensberry, and Dubois, who's Queensberry. So you could look at them against matchroom fighters like AJ, for example, or that's it. I think really AJ. There's no one else other than AJ.
Hergovich.
No, yeah, you could do that. You could do Dubois versus Hergovich.
Yeah.
I doubt that. The only reason I doubt that is because of the fact that Hergovich is literally one fight from the
Was
title.
ranked. Yeah.
Yeah, where his rank is. Oh, I'm being stupid. Just remember, Maurizio Lara versus Nick Ball.
That's a sick fight.
That is just tanks against tanks. That's a great fight. That is a great fight. If Lara can still make featherweight, you could literally make Nick Ball versus Maurizio Lara.
Mm.
That would be a great fight. Or you could do Josh Warrington against Nick Ball.
Mm.
That would also be good because they're both featherweights. They're gonna be lost, but yeah. There's loads of fights that they could do. Another one I'm thinking of is super middleweights, Diego Pacheco versus Zach Parker. Because Pacheco's a good Matchroom USA name, good prospect coming up there. I think he'd really cook Zach Parker. So look, there are loads of fights on that 5v5 that you could make, and we'll see what weight classes they choose, and what fighters they choose. I hope they deliver. I hope they don't put any because what these promoters could do is they might be risk averse and not put in their decent fighters in there because they don't want them to lose. You know what I mean? Like they say, look, we're not going to put Anthony Yard in there with Callum Smith because we don't want Callum Smith losing. We don't want Anthony Yard losing because they're our ticket sellers. We don't want to put Nick Ball in there because he's our ticket sellers, for example. I want them to put them in there, have a go, see what they do. So that would be fun to see, and I'm glad that this is happening. But we'll see when Joshua Ngannou fight week comes around, what they've got cooking for us.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's blazing in Saudi right now.
Yep.
And speaking of firefights, we've got next week on the 27th, Jaime Munguia takes on John Ryder, which I think is a very good fight. Like in terms of entertainment, you're going to get peak entertainment here. Jaime Munguia, obviously former WBO light middleweight champion, undefeated, kid prodigy. Everyone knew him. Like everyone thought he was the next Canelo when it came to his story and how he was. John Ryder coming off the loss to Canelo, but giving him a hell of a good fight in that fight. Really taking it to Canelo. Not competitive. He didn't win, but he made it competitive. He made it fairly competitive in the later rounds. Tough fighter. And then Jaime Munguia's last fight against Sergey Derevyanchenko was probably a fight of the year contender where he could have lost that. He could have very well lost that. It was very close and a very good fight. And I think their styles mash up well, where you're going to get another good fight of the year contender. And I'm not so sure that Munguia wins this fight, other than scorecards being cooked, because Derevinchenko is a very good opponent. We saw what he did against Triple G. He made Triple G look human. He really took it to Triple G, but he hasn't really had great days like that since Derevinchenko. And what's his name? Munguia really struggled with Derevinchenko. He really struggled. Like, it was a tough fight for him to win. And Derevinchenko, mind you, was coming off a year inactivity, and he was also coming off of 3 back-to-back losses to Golovkin, Charlo, and then Adames. So it wasn't like he was in the form of his life or anything like that. So I think Munguia is going to really struggle in this fight against John Ryder. So John Ryder's a tricky, tough opponent who can mix it up well, and he's very rugged and tough. He's going to be hard to fight on the inside with him and fight him basically. We might see an upset here. We could very well see an upset, but if we don't, then what's on the line for Munguia is the rumor is that if Munguia can win this fight and he doesn't take too much damage, then they'll do a May Cinco de Mayo fight between him and Canelo, which makes a bit of sense. Obviously, you want Canelo versus Benavidez, but this one, I get why they're doing it in terms of it's an easier fight for Canelo, and it's also Cinco de Mayo, so you do Mexican versus Mexican, and that sells. But what are your thoughts on Munguia versus Ryder?
Yeah, I echo a lot of your thoughts. One thing that I look at when I look at this fight is Munguia versus Rosado, and seeing how he struggled with Rosado doesn't fill me with confidence. At that point, Rosado was completely washed, but he had a tough night's work in that fight, and Ryder is a tougher fighter than Rosado is currently. So I look at how he struggled in that fight. I can see Ryder posing certain problems for Munguia, man, especially when it comes to fighting on the inside, and stuff like that. And Ryder can make it a very rough fight for him. I think Munguia likes there's a certain type of pace he likes to fight, and if you make him feel uncomfortable, then you will expose holes in his game. And I feel like that could be potentially the kind of fight we have in our hands. It's a tough fight for him. This is a potential banana skin for him, and he might lose his fight.
Yeah, and but it's a good fight. Like, in terms of firefights, it's going to be really good back and forth fight because both of them don't know how to fight either way. They know just how to come forward and really stick it to the other. And I agree with Chris where we could probably see Ryder get robbed, like he wins the fight, but because it's Munguia is the main guy at Golden Boy, and they want him to have the big fights, that we could see him get robbed. But he says, let's not talk about robberies. We've had enough of them. I think he's talking about last night's Natasha Jonas and Michaela Mayer fight, which I'm not going to get into because I wasn't bothered to watch that boxer card. It was not good at all. But Munguia is weird, man. Like, when he was coming up and he beat Saddam Ali to become world champion, the guy was 21. And then he beat Liam Smith, and he flogged Liam Smith. He put him to the ground, and then he completely flogged him. But since then, it was like since Liam Smith. So Liam Smith was in 2018. Since Liam Smith, he really didn't do anything after winning that. So he won the light middleweight title, and then he hasn't done anything since. And it's weird because he was 20, like deep. He's 27 now. When he fought Liam Smith was in 2018. So that's what, 6 years ago. So he's 21 when he stopped. When he beat up, not stopped, sorry. When he beat up Liam Smith, like, that guy had potential to do something in his career. And he just didn't. He was meant to have a fight with Charlo. That didn't happen. He fought a couple bums in 2022. No one was interested. And I just feel like the interest in his career has just gone, just flatlined. Because no one wants to see, no one cares if you don't fight the top guys. Like, he's just not. No one cares. And I feel like this the Canelo fight, he's just probably gonna cash out if he does fight Canelo. Chris says Munguia's resume is not great. Only one of note is Liam Smith, and Munguia arguably should have lost his last fight. Yeah, you're right. Since Liam's, you're muted. Oh, there you are. Since
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, since Liam Smith, it's like a bit similar to Tank, except Tank's still done certain things. After Tank beat Pedraza, he hadn't stepped the level up from Pedraza. The same thing with Munguia. He beat a good fighter, good world champion in Liam Smith. and he didn't step the level up since. And he's even been worse than Tank because he's been fighting real bums. He's been fighting real bums, and he hadn't done anything in his career. He's been having tough fights. So we have to see if he proper cleans out Ryder. Then I have to give him his credit. Like, fair enough. Like, to clean out a guy like Ryder and to stop him and do what Canelo couldn't do is a good win to have. But I'm just not sold on him. I'm not sure that he can become a world champion again. I think that door has kind of closed on him. Maybe the only way it opens is if he gets fortunate and gets a rubbish vacant title fight. But other than that, I can't see him beating Benavidez. I can't see him beating a Morel. I can't even see him beating a Caleb Plant. I'll be honest.
Agreed.
I just don't see a lot of him. So, but good fight to watch. This will be a great fight. It's got that guarantee of it will be a great fight to watch. So, if you are tuning in for that, you're in for a good fight, or at least catch the highlights for it because it's a great to watch. Liam Horgan, big up Liam. Big fans, guys. Thoughts on the Bellew and O'Hara Davis feud? I mean, hey, boxing's boxing, in it. Like, people not gonna like each other. People are not gonna say much about each other, and I think now it's kind of
calmed down now.
Yeah, they don't really
say, like, obviously after he lost, I don't think Bellew had much to say about what happened. So O'Hara said that he has no bad word to say about Bellew, so we just leave it there.
Yes, that feud is like, there's no point. And I think they're at that point in their careers where there's no need to have it. It's just boring. You don't need to be friends, but you don't need to stop feuding each other. And
one of them is retired, and the other, is just lost.
He's doing his career, so
yeah.
Ryder wins in my eyes, but won't get the decision. I said Maya would dominate Jonas, which she did, but will get robbed. With previous case, they are smelling the brown envelopes. Yeah, that's the problem with boxing, is home cooking is really real, and you can just predict how a lot of fights go. Oh, I think it's going to be competitive, but I don't think if it's competitive, then that guy's going to win because he's in that guy's hometown. And unfortunately, it's been an issue in boxing.
So unfortunate, man. Robbery is so unfortunate because you dedicate your life to a sport, to a whole camp, to know that you could potentially get robbed in that fight. That's crazy.
Yeah, but let's not act like Ryder didn't benefit from it because he fought Danny Jacobs, and I thought he lost that fight. I thought it was quite clear that he lost that fight, and he was very fortunate, and he got the scorecards on it. So it goes both ways, where it's not just one fighter that it happens to. It happens to every single fighter. It just depends on where you are. Chris Welch says, "I like Bellew, but he's mad biased towards certain fights."
100%.
Yep, but that's him, isn't it? That's his bias, and it sells. So it's what gets him back on the DAZN broadcast all the time. So just gotta accept it how it is. I think that's it for today. We've covered a lot of topics today. That was really good. Boxing's gonna start picking up in the next few weeks, so be sure to tune in for to Ringside Fracas for that as boxing starts to pick up more and more again. Obviously, it took a break this week. Next week it's simmering, but then the weeks after it's going to come straight back. And February and March are great months for boxing. We've got some great fights. Teofimo Lopez coming back on a Thursday night. Tyson Fury, Opataya. And in March, we've got so many big fights. Joshua Ngannou, Zhang Parker. We've also got the Japanese fighters all fighting. Junta Nakatani coming back. So there's a lot of things to watch out for come February and March. So make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure that you like this video. Make sure you comment also on the video. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at Ringside Fracas, and just keep tuning in because it's going to start picking it back up, and we're going to review everything, and we're going to go into much detail and give you the best shows that we can as possible. So we'll see you next week. Peace.